Mother's dark secret shocks. Police, a very sad case. In the peaceful city of Pune, India, lived the Pandey family. Tarun, a software engineer, his wife Rocky, and their 13-year-old son Chaitanya. From the outside, they seemed like any other loving family in their apartment complex. But on August 5th, 2015, everything changed when young Chaitanya was found dead in his bathroom. At first, it looked like a tragic accident. But as investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a web of lies, abuse, and a cold-blooded plan that would shock the entire community. This is the story of a special child who deserved nothing but love, yet found himself trapped in a nightmare created by those who should have protected him most. If you enjoy real stories from Reddit that reveal the darker side of human nature, please subscribe to our channel. Each week, we bring you carefully researched true stories that remind us how appearances can be deceiving. Drop a like if you want more stories like this. Today, we dive into the heartbreaking case of Chaitanya Pandey, a story that proves sometimes the greatest dangers can hide behind the most ordinary doors. The morning of August 5th, 2015, started like any other day in Pune, but it quickly turned into a nightmare for the Pandey family. As the clock struck 9:30 a.m., Tarun and Rocky Pandey rushed through the doors of Pune General Hospital, carrying their unconscious 13-year-old son, Chaitanya. They were breathing heavily, tears streaming down their faces as they told the hospital staff about a bathroom accident. The medical team immediately sprang into action, but despite their best efforts, at 10:15 a.m., they had to deliver the heartbreaking news. Chaitanya couldn't be saved. The grief-stricken parents could barely stand when a young doctor, Dr. Sharma, approached them with some disturbing questions. He explained that they needed to perform a detailed examination of Chaitanya's body and that he had already contacted the local police station. When Tarun asked why the police were involved, Dr. Sharma gently explained that certain marks on Chaitanya's body suggested his death might not have been accidental. This news hit the parents like a second tragedy, leaving them confused and terrified. The story of the Pandey family had begun 15 years earlier, in 2000, when Tarun Pandey, a successful software engineer at Tech Solutions Private Limited, married Rocky through an arranged marriage. Their wedding, held in Nagpur's Golden Palace Hotel, was attended by over 500 guests. Despite being an arranged marriage, their connection was instant and deep. Tarun earned a comfortable salary of Rs 85,000 per month, allowing them to build a beautiful life together in their 3-bedroom apartment in Pune's peaceful Koregaon Park area. Their happiness reached new heights on March 15, 2002, when they welcomed their baby boy Chaitanya into the world. He was born at 3:45 a.m., weighing 3.2 kilograms, a healthy baby with bright eyes and a cheerful smile. The new parents spent countless hours watching their little one sleep, taking hundreds of photos, and celebrating every tiny milestone. Their small family felt complete, and their home was filled with the sound of baby giggles and lullabies. As parents, Tarun and Rocky devoted themselves completely to Chaitanya's upbringing. They enrolled him in the best play school when he turned 2, bought him educational toys, and spent quality time reading him stories every night. Tarun would take him to the park every evening while Rocky taught him new words and songs. They documented everything: his first step at 11 months, his first word, Papa, at 13 months, and his first day at play school. However, around the time Chaitanya turned 2.5, subtle changes began to emerge in his behavior. While other children his age were speaking in small sentences, Chaitanya struggled with basic words. He would often sit alone in corners, avoiding eye contact with others. During play school activities, teachers noticed he had difficulty following simple instructions. Both parents initially dismissed these signs as their child being just a little different, but deep down, a worry began to grow in their hearts. They could never have imagined that these early concerns would somehow connect to the tragic events that would unfold 11 years later. Like any loving parents, Tarun and Rocky had big dreams for their son's future. They would often sit together after dinner, talking about how Chaitanya would grow up to become a doctor or an engineer. Tarun even started saving money in a special account for Chaitanya's college education, adding Rs 5,000 every month. But as the days passed, they couldn't help but notice that their son was different from other children in his playgroup. While other 3-year-olds would run around the playground, climb on jungle gyms, and chase each other with endless energy, Chaitanya preferred to sit quietly in a corner, playing with the same toy car for hours. Worried about their son's development, they visited 5 different doctors over 6 months, hoping each one would tell them something different. Finally, on a rainy Tuesday morning in September 2005, Dr. Mehra, a child development specialist at Pune Children's Hospital, sat them down for a long discussion. After conducting various tests over several weeks, she explained that Chaitanya had a developmental disability. The medical reports showed that while his physical age would advance normally, his mental development would remain significantly delayed. The doctor explained that Chaitanya might always have the mental capacity of a 4 to 5-year-old child, even as his body grew older. The news hit Tarun and Rocky like a thunderbolt. They spent countless nights crying, trying to understand why this had happened. They visited temples every weekend, praying for a miracle. Rocky even quit her job as a primary school teacher to dedicate all her time to Chaitanya's care. They consulted with specialists in Mumbai and Delhi, spending nearly Rs 8 lakhs on various treatments and therapies between 2005 and 2008. But gradually, they began to accept their new reality and focused on giving Chaitanya the best life possible. Their approach to parenting changed completely. They enrolled Chaitanya in a special needs school that cost Rs 25,000 per month, where trained teachers worked with him patiently. At home, they created a structured routine that made him feel secure. Every morning started with Rocky helping him brush his teeth and get dressed. Tarun would drop him at school before going to work, and Rocky would spend hours. In April 2015, after another massive argument that lasted until 3 a.m., both Tarun and Rocky finally agreed that divorce was their only option. They approached the Pune family court on April 15, 2015. However, what Tarun thought would be a straightforward separation turned into a nightmare when Rocky's lawyer presented their demands. She wanted alimony of Rs 25 lakhs, approximately $30,000, citing her years of dedication to Chaitanya's care and her sacrifice of a teaching career. Tarun, who earned Rs 85,000 per month and had already spent most of his savings on Chaitanya's treatments, felt his heart sink. His bank balance showed only Rs 3.2 lakhs, and he had monthly expenses of Rs 45,000 for rent, Chaitanya's school fees, and basic necessities. The custody battle that followed was bitter and draining. Initially, Chaitanya continued living with Tarun in their Koregaon Park apartment, maintaining his routine of attending his special needs school. But on May 10, 2015, Rocky's lawyers filed an emergency petition for custody, arguing that as a full-time mother, she was better equipped to care for a child with special needs. The court proceedings lasted 3 weeks, during which social workers visited both parents' homes and interviewed Chaitanya's teachers. Finally, on June 1, 2015, the judge granted primary custody to Rocky, with Tarun getting visiting rights on weekends. Chaitanya moved with his mother to a rented 2-bedroom flat in Pune's Kalyani Nagar area, just 4 kilometers from his father's home. Throughout June and July 2015, Tarun tried desperately to negotiate with Rocky about the alimony amount. He had meetings with 3 different banks for loans, but each rejected his application due to his existing home loan. He even approached his relatives, but no one could help with such a large sum. During one particularly emotional meeting at their lawyer's office, Tarun showed Rocky his bank statements, credit card bills, and loan documents, proving he couldn't afford the Rs 25 lakhs. He offered to pay Rs 8 lakhs in installments over 2 years, but Rocky wouldn't even consider it. Rocky's response to his financial struggles was cold and dismissive. Through broken sobs and gasps for air, Rocky explained what had happened. She told them that Chaitanya had gone to take his bath at 11:15 a.m., as he did every day after returning from his morning session at school. Usually she would help him bathe, but today he had insisted on trying by himself, something his occupational therapist had been encouraging. After 20 minutes, when she didn't hear any sounds from the bathroom, she knocked on the door. There was no response. She knocked again, louder this time, calling out, "Chaitanya, beta." Still nothing but silence. Panic rising in her chest, Rocky had tried to open the door, but it was locked from the inside. She called out several more times, her voice growing more desperate with each attempt. Finally, unable to bear the silence any longer, she and Mr. Desai had to break open the door. The sight that greeted them was devastating. Chaitanya was lying face down on the bathroom floor, unmoving. Mrs. Sharma, who had basic first aid training from her years as a school teacher, quickly checked for a pulse while Mr. Desai called for an ambulance. They tried basic CPR, but Chaitanya showed no response. Within minutes, neighbors from other floors gathered to help. Mr. Patil from the fifth floor, who owned a car, offered to drive them to the hospital immediately instead of waiting for the ambulance. As 4 people carefully carried Chaitanya down the stairs, Mrs. Sharma called Tarun on his office number. When she finally reached him at 12:10 p.m., he was in a meeting at his office in Magarpata City, about 10 kilometers away. The moment he heard about Chaitanya, he rushed out, leaving his laptop and belongings behind. He made it to the hospital in record time, running 3 red lights and nearly having an accident himself. The emergency room at Pune General Hospital burst into action when they arrived, with doctors and nurses rushing to help. But after 15 minutes of desperate attempts to revive Chaitanya, the senior doctor, Dr. Pradeep Kumar, emerged from the emergency room with a grim expression. He informed them that Chaitanya had passed away, likely about an hour before reaching the hospital. However, what happened next surprised everyone. Instead of releasing the body for last rites, Dr. Kumar called the police. He explained that certain marks on Chaitanya's body didn't match with a simple bathroom fall. His trained eye had noticed something that raised serious concerns about the circumstances of Chaitanya's death. The police arrived within 20 minutes, and the hospital staff began preparing for a post-mortem examination, leaving both parents in a state of shock and disbelief. The atmosphere in Pune General Hospital grew even more tense when Dr. Kumar explained the need for a post-mortem examination. Standing in the sterile hospital corridor at 1:30 p.m., both parents initially refused, unable to comprehend why their son's body needed to be cut open when the cause seemed so obvious: a bathroom accident. Tarun, still in his office clothes and ID card hanging from his neck, argued with the doctors for almost an hour. "My son just slipped in the bathroom," he kept repeating, his voice growing hoarse from crying. However, Dr. Kumar gently but firmly explained that the marks on Chaitanya's body told a different story. The initial medical examination had revealed disturbing evidence. Dr. Kumar showed them photographs of unusual bruising patterns on Chaitanya's chest and abdomen. These weren't the kind of injuries typically seen in bathroom falls, which usually resulted in head injuries or broken bones. Instead, these marks suggested repeated impact from some kind of object. The hospital's senior pediatrician, Dr. Meena Shah, pointed out that the bruises were of different colors, indicating they had occurred at different times over the past 24-48 hours. Finally, at 3:45 p.m., after consulting with their family lawyer over the phone, Tarun and Rocky gave their consent for the post-mortem. On August 7, 2015, they performed Chaitanya's last rites at the Vaikunth Crematorium. Over 200 people attended, including his teachers from the special needs school, neighbors, and family friends. Rocky sat in a corner, seemingly lost in her thoughts, while Tarun performed the rituals with trembling hands. The entire ceremony was a blur of tears, grief, and the haunting sound of Sanskrit mantras. Many noticed that Rocky didn't cry during the ceremonies, which seemed unusual for a mother who had just lost her child. She sat still, almost statue-like, as the flames rose into the evening sky. The post-mortem report, released on August 10, 2015, contained shocking details that changed everything. The 22-page document prepared by forensic expert Dr. Rajesh Patil revealed that Chaitanya had suffered severe internal injuries. The report documented 17 distinct impact marks on his body, primarily concentrated on his chest and abdomen. These injuries had been caused by a cylindrical object approximately 2 to 3 inches in diameter. The time of death was estimated between 11:20 a.m. and 11:40 a.m. on August 5th. Most disturbingly, the report concluded that these injuries were consistent with assault, not an accident. Based on this evidence, the Pune police arrested Rocky on August 11th at 3:15 a.m. from her sister's house in Kothrud, where she had been staying since the cremation. During the initial 12 hours of interrogation, she maintained her story about the bathroom accident. However, when confronted with the post-mortem evidence and inconsistencies in her statement, she finally broke down. Inspector Sanjay Jadhav, who led the investigation, recorded her confession at 5:30 p.m. on August 11th. The truth she revealed was more horrifying than anyone could have imagined. Through tears and trembling words, Rocky confessed that she had killed Chaitanya using her son's cricket bat, which had been a gift from Tarun on his last birthday. According to her statement, she had first hit him in the living room, then dragged his body to the bathroom to stage the accident. The police found the cricket bat hidden in the storage room, still bearing traces of blood despite attempts to clean it. When asked about her motive, Rocky began telling a story that seemed to shock even the hardened police officers. She claimed that on that fateful morning, Chaitanya had become unusually aggressive, though her description of events would soon be proven false by further investigation. During her interrogation at Pune police station, Rocky's story began to fall apart. She claimed that on the morning of August 5th, she had acted in self-defense, describing how she had grabbed Chaitanya's cricket bat in a moment of panic. According to her statement recorded by Inspector Jadhav, she struck Chaitanya multiple times until he fell to the ground. Through constant sobs, she kept repeating, "I didn't mean to kill him, I just wanted him to stop." Her story seemed rehearsed, lacking the raw emotion one would expect from a mother who had just lost her child in such tragic circumstances. The police assembled a special team of 5 officers to investigate the case thoroughly. Led by Senior Inspector Priya Sharma, they spent the next week gathering evidence from the crime scene and interviewing everyone who knew the family. They collected the blood-stained cricket bat, which had been hidden behind old boxes in the storage room. The forensic team found that someone had attempted to clean the bat with bleach, suggesting premeditation rather than a panic-driven action. They also discovered that the bathroom door's lock had been deliberately damaged from the outside, not broken open in desperation, as Rocky had initially claimed. On August 15, 2015, the police called Tarun for questioning. He arrived at the police station at 10:30 a.m., still wearing black clothes of mourning. When Inspector Sharma shared Rocky's claims about Chaitanya's alleged aggressive behavior, Tarun broke down completely. Through his tears, he explained how Chaitanya, despite being 13 years old physically, had the mental capacity of a 5-year-old child. He showed the police years of medical records, psychological evaluations, and school reports that all confirmed Chaitanya's gentle, childlike nature. "My son was afraid of his own shadow," Tarun said. "He would cry if he accidentally stepped on an ant." The investigation took a dramatic turn when the police began interviewing residents of Sterling Heights apartments. Mrs. Sharma from Flat 402 provided a detailed diary she had maintained for the past 2 months, documenting disturbing sounds and incidents from Rocky's apartment. Mr. and Mrs. Desai from Flat 404 shared mobile phone recordings of Chaitanya's crying and screaming, which they had recorded as evidence but had been too afraid to report. The building's security guard, Ram Singh, revealed that he had often heard Chaitanya crying late at night, but Rocky had warned him to mind his own business. The most shocking testimony came from Priya Verma, a 19-year-old college student who lived in Flat 401. She described how just 3 days before the murder, she had seen Rocky dragging Chaitanya by his hair across the corridor. When Priya tried to intervene, Rocky had threatened to make her life a living hell if she told anyone. The building's CCTV footage from the previous month showed multiple instances of Rocky physically abusing Chaitanya in the lobby and parking area. Several residents confirmed that Rocky would often leave Chaitanya alone in the locked apartment for 8 to 10 hours at a time without food or water. As the evidence mounted, a disturbing pattern of abuse emerged. Maya Joshi, who ran a small grocery store near the apartment, told police that Chaitanya would often come to her shop asking for biscuits, showing signs of having gone without food for days. She had noticed bruises on his arms and legs multiple times, but had hesitated to report it. The special needs school's principal, Dr. Rima Kapoor, shared incident reports where teachers had documented unexplained injuries on Chaitanya's body, but each time Rocky had convinced them it was due to his clumsiness. The investigation was revealing a history of systematic abuse that had gone unreported for months, painting a very different picture from Rocky's claim of self-defense. Further investigation revealed heartbreaking details about Chaitanya's life. Despite his developmental challenges, he had found ways to communicate his suffering to the neighbors. 12-year-old Artie, who lived in Flat 405, told the police how Chaitanya would often stand by his bedroom window in the evenings when Rocky was out. He would quietly describe to her how his mother would beat him with belts, wooden spoons, and sometimes even burn him with hot spoons. Artie's mother, Mrs. Gupta, showed the most disturbing part of Sudha's testimony, described Rocky's growing resentment toward Chaitanya. She revealed that Rocky blamed Chaitanya for ruining her life, frequently saying things like, "If you hadn't been born, my life would have been perfect." Sudha described one particular incident where Rocky had forced Chaitanya to kneel on rice grains for 3 hours while holding heavy books, all because he had taken too long to finish his breakfast. When Sudha tried to stop this torture, Rocky had pushed her against the wall, screaming that she would end this problem once and for all. Deeply concerned for her grandson's safety, Sudha had offered to take Chaitanya back to Nagpur with her. She had even prepared a room for him and found a special needs school nearby that could accommodate him. However, Rocky's response to this suggestion was frightening. She threatened to file kidnapping charges against her own mother and warned that she would ensure Sudha never saw any of her family members again. Feeling helpless and terrified, Sudha had returned to Nagpur alone. In her police statement, she broke down completely, saying through tears, "I knew something terrible would happen to my grandson, but I never imagined my own daughter would. I will never forgive myself for leaving him there." After gathering evidence for several weeks, Grandmother Meera decided it was time to speak up against Rocky. She could no longer bear the weight of knowing what had happened to her beloved grandson. The police handled the new round of questioning differently this time. Instead of being aggressive, they started with a gentle approach, slowly building up to more serious questions. This strategy worked. After hours of questioning, Rocky's carefully built wall of lies began to crack, and the terrible truth came pouring out. The story that emerged was shocking. Rocky had fallen in love with her landlord, Mr. Sharma, and they had been secretly meeting for over 8 months. They dreamed of starting a new life together, but needed money to do so. Rocky saw her son Chaitanya as a roadblock to her happiness, especially since caring for him meant she couldn't spend as much time with Mr. Sharma. Then, she remembered something important. Her ex-husband Tarun had taken out a life insurance policy for Chaitanya worth 10 lakh rupees, $12,000 USD. This discovery led to a terrible plan taking shape in her mind. Rocky and Mr. Sharma spent nearly 3 weeks planning every detail. They chose August 5th, 2015 because it was when most neighbors would be away at a local festival. According to police records, they waited until late evening when there would be fewer people around. The investigation revealed that this case led to real change in Pune, with new helplines and better protection for vulnerable children. It teaches us that if something doesn't feel right, we must speak up. Our voice could save a life. Thank you for staying with us through this heartbreaking story. If you want to hear more real stories from Reddit, hit that subscribe button and like this video. Share it with others who need to hear this important message. Your support helps us keep sharing these stories that need to be told. Remember, if you see signs of abuse, don't stay silent. One phone call could make all the difference. See you in our next story.